Bank of Ghana earlier issued a minimal capital requirement for the local banks. They've raised a few concerns about this because they believe it's neck-breaking. Take a look at the story. We'll return to have a conversation about how to fix the insolvency on our local banking front.
The local banks argue that governments have consistently overlooked the efforts of local banks and granted huge contracts to foreign banks operating in the country. This, they claim, has put foreign banks in good condition ahead of local banks, most of whom are struggling to meet the 400 million cedis capital requirement. The members of the association made the accusation when they met government at the Jubilee House to present a petition for an extension of the deadline for meeting the capital requirement from December 2018 to December 2022. Among other issues, the local banks accuse governments of giving contracts such as collection of money in key state institutions to foreign banks. They also pointed out that government is quick in using foreign banks as financial advisors during major projects. Citing Nigeria as an example to buttress their point, representatives of the local banks argue that Nigeria has deliberately made a policy where a huge percentage of government's contracts are awarded to local banks to help them grow and also help them create jobs. They maintain that situation is the opposite in Ghana, where major contracts go to the foreign banks. The local banks also shut down arguments that they must grow their capacity to undertake big-ticket projects. They stress that it is not the business of all banks to undertake big-ticket projects. In addition, they argue that the solution to challenges facing the local banks is not to sharply increase the capital requirement in a short period, but to ensure good corporate governance.
And so those are some of the concerns. We've been joined in studio by Osei JC, he's head of banking supervision at the Central Bank. Osei, welcome and thank you very much for your time. And also joining us is Professor Cletus Totonuese, an economist and CEO of Claydon Consult. Prof, good morning. It's been a long time. How are you doing?
I'm doing
great.
Fine.
Let's start off the conversation this way. So what exactly is the difficulty from where the Central Bank says, or say the banks have their concerns, but you insist that you will go on with the directive regardless. What is the difficulty?
Thank you, and good morning to my listeners. I guess you are referring to the increase in the minimum paid up capital of the banks, which is expected to come on by 31st December 2018.
Right.
Yeah. The business of banking thrives on confidence. Confidence and trust.
Okay.
These two are the corner pillars of banking business. People work hard to get money. They spend some and they put some with the banks, they deposit with the banks, hoping that when the time comes and they need their monies, the banks are going to make available the monies to them, right?
Right.
When the monies are given to the banks, the monies are not supposed to be sitting in the vaults of the bank forever.
Right.
The banks would have to intermediate. They would have to give these monies to businesses and individuals who also need monies to run their business.
Right.
And in so doing, in the intermediation process, the banks are exposed to one risk or the other.
Right.
Some of these risks could crystallize. And when they crystallize, they impact on the equity, the capital of the banks. So over the years, what has happened is that the way banks have conducted their activities have resulted in some of these risks crystallizing and impacting on their capital.
Under your supervision, the central bank's supervision?
Surely under the supervision of the bank, of the central bank, but I'll address this issue as the discussion unfolds. And the impact of these risks is that they reduce the equity of the banks, the paid-up capital of the banks. So you realize that you have banks, you have some banks that do not have adequate capital. And maybe we had some banks that were insolvent in the sense that the assets that they carry were not enough to cater for the liabilities that they had contracted. In that situation, you have banks with weak balance sheets. So the question is, how do we address the situation?
Is the minimum capital requirement the paid
Yes, I'm coming there.
Is that we don't have too much?
Yes, so what I'm saying is that...
Is that a panacea?
Yes, what I'm saying is that, so what it means is that the banks would have to bring in additional capital to strengthen their balance sheets. So that depositors, you and I, who have placed our monies with the banks, will not be at risk. Because if a bank doesn't have capital or adequate capital and losses crystallize, they impact immediately on depositors' funds. So we want to strengthen the balance sheet of the banks.
Prof, let me bring you in at this point. You're an economist, a very experienced one indeed. This is the story the central bank is painting, or the picture is painting to us. What do you see from where you sit? The banks are becoming insolvent and the risk factors are increasing. What do you see?
Well, I think the solvency aspect has been handled by him clearly.
Right.
You must be credit worthy. You must be wealthy. You must be sound.
Okay.
He has touched on those things. A bank operates on trust. He even added confidence.
Right.
Now, when we come to the banks, we have given them what we call universality.
Right.
They do commercial banking, they do development banking. Some of them venture into areas, I want to say that maybe they don't know the terrain very well.
Okay.
So the whole idea about solvency is not from Bank of Ghana.
Okay.
It is an international requirement. I think Basel III even increased the intent and content of Basel II in bringing out some of the capital requirement. You know, when you say 400, 400 is 88,000. 400 million is
90 million.
88, or let's say 89 million.
Our bank said that's too expensive. They can't meet it.
You see, you are a universal bank.
Right.
You are not a savings and loan bank. We have standards, best practices of the world. You have money in the bank, you are not thinking about one day you get up, the money is not there, like the DKM type of thing. You are confident, you sleep well, you work hard, you put the money there. So that confidence, that trust should not be compromised.
Right.
And one of the ways of handling those things are the upsurges, the risk factors that can come, including uncertainties.
Right.
When they hit the bank, has the bank the financial muscle to continue? Much of the current developments in Ghana is not a banking crisis. I think we are talking about it from a very unprofessional point of view.
Our banks being too ambitious. You talk about they venturing sometimes into terrains that they may not well know. Are they being too ambitious?
Not necessarily.
Because they are running a universal system.
Not necessarily. And that brings in the risks banks take.
Okay.
You can't be a bank, they bring the money for you, and then you keep it and hold all the cash. Then you are not an intermediary. You have to move the money to those who need money.
Right.
And do business. So here comes the a risk element. And when we say risk, some risks are not the risk in terms of the probability of the occurrence that they will happen are not known. We call them uncertainty. Sometimes you have to venture into uncertainty areas, like some sectors. Sometimes you have to, you know the risk, you calculate, you're moving. There are different maturities for the investment, the placement you do with the money for purposes of intermediation. And then at times, when the maturities differ, and then there's this demand on the banks, it creates problems. So the bank must be strong to be able to meet it. That is where the adequacy comes in, the capital adequacy.
I'll say, let me come to you. So now the banks are saying that, look, you are literally collapsing them, and you are not giving them the vim to move on. They have also accused government, for example, giving contracts to foreign banks and making them even stronger. What does the supervision look like from where you sit? Are we doing enough? Because every time we have, for example, UT, Capital Bank, the first people to be fingered will be Bank of Ghana.
Thank you very much. Let me address this issue of under the supervision of the banking supervision, the Bank of Ghana. You see, we have what we call core principles of banking supervision. And if you look at the objective of banking supervision, it is not to avoid bank failures. It is to mitigate the risk of bank failures. Even in the advanced economies where they have very strong and effective banking supervision systems, they've been bank failures.
So you are being accused wrongly?
Yes. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Let me give you this example. We have Kolebu, we have 37, and all the hospitals in this country, but people die. So our role is to mitigate the risk of bank failures. Then let me come back to you.
So for example, so let me ask quickly. So for example, I go to a regular bank. I want to access a loan or facility, and part of the process is to ask me to sketch a map to my home. Now, if I've gone to rent an apartment, it will expire, say we're in April, it will expire in June. How would a bank know that I will leave that location in June and move to another place? Clearly, that's a big risk that
that's a big risk. So, Prof said something. Banks have to mitigate the risk that they are exposed to in their activities.
Who will guide them to do that?
Yes, it is the responsibility of the bank, the directors and the key management staff to ensure that they have risk management framework in place that will mitigate some of these risks.
Do they have that?
Yes.
Do they have that?
Yes, that's the question. So the question is, you asked a very good question. That is why those of us in Bank of Ghana, the regulators, we also have the responsibility of assessing the adequacy and effectiveness of the kind of risk management framework that the banks have put in place to mitigate the risk that they are exposed to. So, a bank takes customers' deposits, grant them out as loans, and the bank did not follow its own credit underwriting standards.
How?
That's the question. A bank takes deposited money and give the monies to another subsidiary of the bank over and above statutory allowed limits.
That's where the rules are illegality.
Where the rules are clear, clearly stated that you cannot lend to subsidiary below above a certain level. You have insider dealings where directors and people take money, they override controls. So that is why Bank of Ghana, we are saying that, you talk about UT, we have the mandate of ensuring that where we see that the interests of depositors are being jeopardized, the activities of banks are exposing depositors to very high risk, then the law allows us to intervene.
Are now losing a lot of respect in terms of confidence from the public. Where were they? Negative 24%. Where were they? Where was the Bank of Ghana?
It's a worry to somebody like me because it's telling me our financial experts, I will put it, are not doing the right diligence that to keep them going.
Every institution has a supervising role, I mean, so Bank of Ghana, supervises all the banks. So when they look, let's say they are up there and they look down, they see this one is going wrong, they cut it off. And then we continue with the rest.
Ghanaian banking system, I think it's fine, but just that it's not helping the ordinary Ghanaian. They take so much from the people and give so little back. Why do you think people had interest in DKM and the rest of the people?
And those are some members of the public expressing their concerns and worry about it. But let's wrap up there. Let's get into the issue of corporate governance and compliance, which I think is a crux of this conversation. Prof, so the local banks are talking about multinationals or foreign banks having more energy and robustness over them, and they feel disadvantaged. What do you say?
I don't think the basis should be national and multinational. The basis, if we really want to break it down, should be what banking are you doing?
Right.
You are a universal banker. You are doing commercial banking and development banking. You are given that license. So forget about whether you're national or multinational. This brings in the corporate governance issues. You see, banks themselves have their own internal control systems. They have the compliance unit, they have the auditor, pre and post audit.
Right.
They come out. If you are a bank and you are hiding information because maybe you have overexposed yourself, and these are practices, rules and regulations that the monetary authorities or the central bank has given us, and you are violating it. You don't even respect your own internal. You create additional risks. So corporate governance, the board of governors, the directors, must make sure they take care of those things. They comply with the rules. If you are into investment banking, I think SEC is there. They will give you ideas. Bank of Ghana is there. The rules are there. Why do you practice differently? Why should you overexpose yourself to a sector or to one individual?
But how would the people out there know? If I take my money and walk into a bank, how would I know all these things you're talking? They sound too technical. For me, as an ordinary customer of a bank, I want my confidence to be restored. How do we do that?
Yes, but that is the reason why the capital requirement has to go up to ensure that your liquidity, not only the liquidity that can be managed, but your solvency is guaranteed.
Is that the solution? Is that the main
solution? It's a key solution to, if we reduce the local banks, what we call the capital adequacy requirement, we reduce it. Let's say 300 or 200 instead of 400.
Right.
Those who are depositing, as he said, they are becoming more intelligent. Why should I give the money to the person who, in terms of the capital adequacy requirement, is paying less? I will go to the other person.
Are we seeing a problem coming where a lot of these banks may not be able to meet it, so they will have to shut down?
Of course, one of the advantages of standard financial requirement is we have too many banks. In my kitchen at home, then I say I have put up a bank. Banking is not about just the place. It's the rules and the regulation. They are part of banking. So you need a situation where that individual, very intelligent, should. Now the bank, there are too many. You want to bring the standard. You must have the financial muscle. You must be able to sustain your place in the market. If you can't, of course, mergers will come, buyouts will come, and so sellouts will happen. And then we have few banks very strong so that we can syndicate for big projects.
Osei, where do we go from here? What is the BOG's forward march for all of us? Because as I sit here, I feel unsafe.
Yeah. You see, as a depositor, you put your money in a bank, and your fortunes are tied to the fortunes of the bank.
Right.
As for shareholders, they will be reported to, they'll get their dividends and everything. But as a depositor, the question is, do you have a way of knowing what is going on in there? That is why we are saying that as regulators who have issued licenses to banks, we have the responsibility of ensuring that you are protected, your funds are protected.
Right.
That is it, because you, the depositor, your fortunes are tied to the fortunes of the bank.
Absolutely.
And you don't know what is going there in there. At best, you are interested on interest on your deposit. So if the central bank, the regulator, is taking decisions that will protect the interests of depositors, by saying that Bank ABCD, or the banks in Ghana, we want to ensure that you have adequate capital so that when there are losses and when risk crystallize, they don't impact directly on the deposit of the depositor, but rather the bank has the financial muscle by way of equity to absorb the losses, so that when the depositor comes, he or she can get
will not
the money.
feel the shock.
That is it. So we are saying that by way of corporate governance, we have issued a directive, and those who qualify to sit on boards of banks must be fit and proper, must be people of integrity.
Well, is it the case that people are appointed to boards without the necessary qualification and expertise and experience? Is that it?
The laws that we have, if you look at the Banks and Specialized Deposit-Taking Institutions Act,
right,
the law is clear on who qualifies to sit on the board of banks, and we're going to enforce it strictly, just as we've done in time past.
When are you beginning?
It's been issued.
Right.
We have issued corporate governance directive. The law is there. In addition to that, we've issued corporate governance directive, which the banks and SDIs are supposed to comply with. Then, besides that, we are going to issue what we call fit and proper. If you don't meet the fit and proper test, you cannot sit on a board.
What is this? Give me two of those.
Yes, you look at your experience.
Okay.
You look at your qualification. You look at your moral integrity. You can have the experience and the qualification. But look, banking, for you to get a banking license, it is a privilege. And what we are saying is that you must use this license to the benefit of depositors and the economy as a whole. That is what we are saying. So we cannot issue licenses to people who are not fit and proper, as well as shareholders.
I thank you. Prof,
we're going to issue risk management guidelines very soon, so that it will help the banks to be able to put in place very good risk management systems.
Prof, you have the final word. Where do we go from here? With all your experience internationally and locally, where do we go from here? The banks argue that the government is not creating an enabling environment for them to thrive. You have heard the issues. You know the issues. Where do we go from here?
Well, from here, the competition should continue. Those projects, the local banks and their supporters are advocating that the projects go to multinational banks and so on and so forth. They should get their loins and compete. Proposal, asset banking is there, corporate banking. They should put their proposal properly together. They provide services which government of Ghana may need, so that they compete. You know, they invite for, we call it expression of interest.
Right.
You put it in, and then they will request you to put in a proposal. Let them do it professionally. It is, in fact, many of the banks we call multinational, it's Ghanaians who are working there.
Right.
But the management and then the board of directors, I'm not going to say that there is this idea that because it's multinational, so the board of directors are better. They must do the right thing.
The right thing is
the right thing.
The right
the
way
policy.
to go.
They must have their metrics of risks, know what want to handle properly, those they can contain, so that their destination of assets.
Would you recommend measures?
They will happen.
Say
they will happen.
People like to stand alone, and that's why they are falling. Would you recommend measures?
Of course, they are even going to happen. In fact, honestly, we should go to about 500, 600 million Ghana.
I thank you very much, Osei. I wish we had more time to talk about this, but unfortunately we ran out of time. Osei JC is the head of banking supervision at the Central Bank, and also Professor Cletus Dodonu is an economist and the CEO of Clay Dot Consult. They've been joining me to find a solution here on your award-winning morning show for banks, local banks, insolvency. We'll be right back.